Welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack Postgame, where the Jazz traveled to Canada to play the Raptors and came away with a loss, but youth once again was on full display, and Walker Kessler had one of the best nights in a statistical standpoint of his entire career. Let's go ahead and talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So once again, it was youth on display in Toronto, but the big thing tonight was, Walker Kessler absolutely dominated both in rebounding, and he blocked a bunch of shots. The guy was just an absolute monster. Now, granted, Jakob Poeltl is better than the starting center for the Raptors who is playing tonight, who is, at this point, is not a particularly developed, polished player. So Walker had a clear advantage in the paint. But his ability to rebound the basketball, both offensively and defensively, finish around the basket. He had a nice scoring game too, and also impact the game on the defensive end was absolutely remarkable. And he continues to play like one of the premier guys, young centers at the very least, in the NBA. And he's obviously a focal point for the Jazz moving forward, and that continues to be the case. And let's just hope that the offense comes around this offseason and he can do a few more things. That's what we all want to see. But his impact on the game, regardless of that, it's tremendous. The guy is so enjoyable to watch play. He plays hard. He plays smart. He's unselfish. He's great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I am still shocked at all the people that gave up on him last year. And yeah, he didn't have his best year last year, but it still wasn't bad. He was good last year, but he just didn't take the jump. And I think that was part Walker Kessler, that was part Hardy, probably part circumstances like trading all the players away. I blame a lot of it on Hardy, but the reality is he always showed the potential. As a rookie, showed the potential. As a second year, showed the potential, and he's just blossomed this year. He had, 13 offensive rebounds, 12 defensive rebounds. That's incredible. Putting aside the blocks and everything else, he's becoming just like a dominating player. And if we have time, I wanted to talk about some of the things I heard Locke say today that just ragged me again. One of them against Kessler, but let's see if we get to that at the end.
Okay. Yeah, it's really there. I listened to some jazz-based podcasts months ago, and they were still talking about getting rid of Walker Kessler as, we can trade him for this. The guys that they were talking about trading him, the trade packages, they were just lousy. Just lousy, essentially just giving the guy away. And here I am continuing, like I've always said, I think that he's, in my opinion, I know you don't agree with this, but I think he's the best player on the team. I think he's the best player moving forward on the team that we have to this point. I don't know about the rest of the guys. The Jazz have a whole bunch of developing players, so I can't say long-term what's going to happen, but based on what I've seen so far, Walker's obviously, he's way more valuable than just giving the guy away, and a bunch of really egregiously incompetent people were claiming that the Jazz should move off of him. And obviously David Locke is, my feelings on that guy. I just think that he's blatantly incompetent at his job, and he should have never been given that job. And thanks to the Miller family, after, Larry was great. I don't really particularly like the rest of his family in terms of running a basketball team. He should have never been given him that radio position. And yeah, he can do whatever he wants on a podcast. Anybody can do whatever they want on a podcast. But there's just a bunch of guys out there who just don't get it. And with Walker, certainly there were a bunch of guys out there who didn't get it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the thing with Walker that we both saw in his first year, he just got some unique skills that you don't teach. I mean, he just got these incredible unique skills. You're just like, wow. Like this guy was like a 20th in the 20s, like as a draft pick. He's got some unique skills. And that's what we're seeing with like a couple of our players is that they have some unique skills. And will they round out the rest? We'll see. Like I don't disagree with you where Walker is like as an impact player. I think he still doesn't get the biggest trade package. I think that's Larry Markkinen. Although I think it could easily get close to that. I think I would put him as our second best player, honestly, ahead of Larry Markkinen. But I put Colin first, even though Colin struggled tonight. I put Colin first. I think that Hardy's holding him back. But Walker's incredible. I'm not. I like Walker. I'm not taking anything away. It would take a massive package for me to trade Walker away. But honestly, it would have taken a massive package last year because I was very bullish on him last year. I didn't see, like, okay, he didn't have a great second year. So what? There's a lot of players that don't. He still showed all of the skills that you saw in the first year. And this year, honestly, he's exceeded my expectations. I had no idea he would be getting 25 rebounds in a game. I mean, so he's exceeded my expectations. But I still see huge growth in offense. He's got good, he's not a consistent shooter, like, and that's his free throw shot, but he's got some really unique, like, he's got good footwork. Like, he's got all the skills that you figure he's going to be able to put that together too.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I was really excited about with Walker compared to Rudy, I mean, I like Rudy, and Rudy had a massive impact on the defensive end, obviously, with the multiple defensive player of the year. But Walker is really good with his hands, and that's something that Rudy never was. And Walker's obviously really good with his hands blocking the shots, and that's a very unique skill. And he showed that at Auburn. I mean, the guy dominated at Auburn blocking shots. He's one of the most uniquely gifted players from that standpoint that I've ever seen play in college basketball. The guy was just unbelievable. But his coordination and his hands and all that, I mean, it's so much different than the situation we had with Rudy. And yeah, that's why I'm bullish on him being able to develop some things and being able to do a lot more than Rudy could have ever hoped to do, quite frankly. And that's not a knock on Rudy. Rudy was also a very low draft pick. And I think he's certainly maximized his physical and athletic abilities to the best of anybody could ever have hoped. I mean, he did that. I mean, he wasn't a high level prospect coming out of France. He just wasn't. But he worked at it, and Rudy worked hard at it. And Rudy's he's always cared, and that was evident from day one. He cared a lot. And Walker goes beyond that, and it's just he's so coordinated, and he has, the ability, the hand-eye coordination, all that. It's just it's all there. He just needs to continue to work at it and develop it.
Yeah, there's nothing more I can say on it other than, on the offensive side, the one thing that I wish that Walker wouldn't be focusing on is shooting 3-pointers. Honestly, shoot a 15-footer, shoot a jump hook, get his free throws down. If you eventually stretch it out to 3, great. But honestly, we don't need to play 5 out. The reality is the best team in the league this year does not play 5 out. You don't need to play 5 out. Hardy will not be here when we start to win. So the reality is just develop those other skills and you will be a dominating player. I mean, because tonight he was dominating. Yeah, he was going against a bag of potato chips. We get that. But still, other players that go against a bag of potato chips don't dominate this way. I mean, this was an incredible performance.
Yeah. As the Toronto Raptors said, going into this game, the high rebound number for any opponent they'd faced this year was 20 rebounds. Walker gets 25. I mean, 25 rebounds is a massive number. That's just, we're not in the Dennis Rodman days anymore. 25 rebounds in this league, in this day and age, I mean, that's just a massive number. So, yeah, we don't need to talk about any more about Walker. I mean, he's just had an absolutely incredible night. But let's go ahead and actually just look at the box score so that we can kind of see what took place tonight. But the one thing that obviously Colin has sat a lot recently. I mean, he was injured. He comes back. He plays a few minutes. Then he sits again. And he just seemed really out of rhythm. He was out of sorts to start the game. And it took him some time to really, I mean, you could see he was fumbling the ball all over the place. I mean, it was just, I mean, I feel bad. I feel really bad for the guy. He's been put in a really tough situation. He's been put in a tough situation ever since he got to Utah. And there was somebody on X that made a response to my coach, and she said that the Utah Jazz ruined him. That's what her claim was. I don't know where she's from, but she actually just flat out said the Utah Jazz ruined him. And I can't really argue that. I think there's some things where Colin has improved on in terms of pace and attacking the basket in the right situation. But overall, I'm not so sure that he's as a player. I'm not sure he's in a better place right now than he was. Obviously, he was injured when he got from Cleveland. You know, he had the ACL thing, and he wasn't over that. But I'm not sure he's in a better place right now in terms of a contract. I mean, statistically, he's just. I think they've really slowed him, and obviously the preference to Keontae hasn't helped.
Well, let me restate what you said. You said Utah Jazz ruined him. I would not say the Utah Jazz. I wouldn't say the Utah Jazz ruined him. Hardy ruined him. I agree with you. He turns the ball over more. He feels uncomfortable with the offense. There's all these sort of things that we're not maximizing Colin Sexton. I honestly want him to be traded. Not that I don't want to see the guy play every day. I have a hard time seeing the guy go. I mean, he's everything that I respect, and coming from nowhere, you know, having to like struggle growing up, like all those sort of things. I root for guys like that. He plays hard, all those sort of things. But the reality is he's not in a good situation, and we should I want the guy to maximize and hit his potential. I don't think we're going to get a lot back for him because we're not maximizing him, but I think he's going to go somewhere. If he's in the right situation, this guy's going to blossom. I mean, he's got some incredible skills, but like on a lot of nights like tonight, he just feels out of sync, right? And he did. It was hard to watch him because he just seemed out of sync, you know. Yeah. He was over dribbling the ball. He was trying to make things happen, you know, because he thinks that he's going to get yanked. I mean, it's just an uncomfortable situation. And his numbers were not terrible tonight. He had a lot of turnovers, but honestly, it just wasn't a good night for him. You know, it wasn't a good night. He didn't feel comfortable. He didn't look comfortable. And I feel bad for him in these situations. Yeah, some of it's on him. I'm not going to say like it's everything Hardy, but it's tough. I mean, I feel bad for Colin Sexton.
Yeah, so do I. He's been put in a no-win situation. I mean, there's no way that he can ever gain rhythm. I mean, he's still his minutes have been inconsistent since he arrived in Utah, and now the Jazz are obviously in tank mode, and Colin Sexton is a plus player, and so they're in a situation where he can't play, because if they do play him and he has big nights, they have an opportunity to win. So he's going to be in and out of the lineup. He's going to get spot minutes here and there. He's not going to get big minutes like he should be getting big minutes on a team that's actually competitive. And the thing that I guess I hope for Colin at this point is that the Jazz can actually get an offer that's acceptable in the offseason, and Colin moves on elsewhere. That's what I think is the best for the Jazz and the best for Colin, in all honesty. Just because as long as Keontae's on the roster, Keontae's going to get preference over him. As long as Hardy's coach, Keontae's going to get preference over him, and Colin's going to get the shaft.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as long as he doesn't get to the Lakers, because I don't want anyone to have to play with LeBron James. LeBron James will just, LeBron hurts every other player that comes and plays next to him. I know I'm not taking away. He's a great player. I'm not taking away any of that. But every team that he's joined, the players that are with him have underperformed and looked worse. And I do not want that to happen to Colin. But send him to Charlotte. Send him somewhere else where like he's one of the guys with the growing team. I wouldn't want to play with Ball either, but you know what I mean. So so let's go on to the other ones. And you made the comment about Keontae. The reality is he got like 31 minutes again. And honestly, I'd rather see Isaiah getting minutes. I'd rather see Bryce getting minutes and seeing what we have there. Isaiah has not had his big assist nights, the last, week. So let's get him back in and see if he can pump up the assists again, because, teams are playing differently against him. That's more impactful for the long term of the Jazz because honestly, you and I see Isaiah is a key player for the Utah Jazz moving forward. Keontae, maybe or maybe not. If I'm going to guess, I don't think he will be, honestly, long term, but we don't know. I think you and I both think I will be there.
Yeah, Keontae. The longer this goes on, the more I'm convinced that Keontae is becoming a problem. I mean, it's I think it's becoming more and more of a problem having him on the roster. And yeah, it's he still played the second most minutes on the team. I mean, Walker had a career night in the statistical standpoint, and Keontae's right behind him in minutes. More minutes than Filipowski, who had a really nice, solid game. More minutes than Isaiah didn't have a great game tonight, but again, it's an uphill battle for him because he's not being given the keys to the car. And at this point, I think that based on everybody else on the roster, he needs to be given the keys to the car, and the offense needs to be more centric around him running the offense, and rather than just 5 out and just start passing around and let a bunch of guys go 1-on-1 or something, or give it to Keontae and have Keontae initiate the offense with a pick and roll. It makes no sense. It just really doesn't.
Yeah, well, Keontae again was playing point guard a lot tonight. I'm not really sure why, because we've seen he can't play point guard. He's not good at it, yet somehow Hardy thinks if I keep trying in different situations, eventually to be able to point guard and prove my thesis that I don't want to admit I was wrong about. Well, Hardy, you were wrong about it. You should not have started him 10 games into the first season. He did not, he did not earn it, etc. Isaiah's going to have up and downs. That's a rookie. That's a second-year player. That's a third-year player. Walker's had some up and down games this season. Isaiah's going to have that. But the reality is you want to see them work through it, right? You want to see okay, I struggled for a half. Let me see if I can turn it around. Well, let him have the shot to do it. That's what we really want to see right now is we want to see Isaiah because he's showing really potential. Kyle wasn't even getting minutes. Remember earlier this season? Kyle wasn't even getting minutes. I don't know why. Because he showed in the summer league that he already had skills. We saw the skills. He wasn't getting any minutes, nothing. And now he's getting minutes. The guy can actually play. Well, Locke points out, he struggles on defense. Well, you know something, Locke? Let me tell you the secret here. Most rookies struggle on defense. Almost all of them struggle on defense. Yes, he's struggling on defense. Yes, he needs to increase his bulk. But one side of the ball, he's looking pretty good. So let's focus on developing that and helping him on the defense at the same time. But, so now he's getting some. But he had honestly, he had another good game. Kyle had another good game.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to, I'm all for yanking a guy if they dog it on defense. I haven't seen that from Kyle. Yet Keontae has dogged it on defense a whole bunch over the first 2 years of his career. And the guy continues to get the benefit of the doubt, and he's he continues to play, and he continues to play big minutes. So it's so inconsistent. I want consistency. That's what I ask for from my coach. I want consistency on how you treat your players. And I know there's all this speculation. Well, you need to treat players differently because different players have different mentalities and different personalities and all that. Well, you can't just be this blatantly preferential to some guys and really put in the doghouse other guys. And I know Kyle was also working on his mechanics on his shot. They've talked about that, and certainly that's going to kind of hurt your ability to play well. But Kyle, he went 7 for 10 tonight, 2 for 4 on threes, 1 for 2 from free throw line, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 17 points. He had a really solid night. Again, and he's had a bunch of these solid nights, and he's playing the right way. One of the Toronto Color guy said that, that he really likes the way Kyle Filipowski plays, that he understands how to play. He said that when Kyle drove the baseline and he drew some guys to him underneath the basket, and he dished the ball to Walker for the dunk, and that was a really nice play. For a guy that's 6'11", that is a heck of a basketball player, 6'11" rookie. So it was tremendous. So I think all the world of Kyle, and I hope that he gets 30 minutes a game or around 30 minutes a game as an average for the rest of this season. That's what I hope.
Well, let me make this comment about Kyle, and this is my projection. And one, there will be a lot of turnover on our roster as we bring other players in. That's the nature of a rebuild. We're going to lose some of our players. We all get that. We know that. That not necessarily meaning they're bad players, they're not NBA players, etc. So it could be Kyle, it could be Isaiah. It could be any of them. We don't know. I think Walker is going to be really hard to trade just because of the value shown. It would take a massive package, to get Walker. But we're going to lose some. But the reality is, I could see Walker and Flip being the starting center and the power forward. Why? Because Flip can hit a 3-point shot, but he's also a fantastic passer, and he's able to take guys off the dribble. So, if he improves his defense, I could see that as being like the starting, power forward and center for the Jazz, because this guy's got incredible skills. He had 2 years in college, so he's a little more advanced than the pure freshman that comes out, right? But he's got incredible skills, and I could see that being 2 years from now or even next year is like the starting, and not marketing, because not that they would benchmark it in, but because they trademark it in for a package.
Yeah, I honestly, I think that's what's going to happen. And
Yeah. And they'll be better with it.
Yeah. And Kyle may actually even they might try to move him to the small forward too. A lot of it depends on Taylor Hendricks. Like, we don't know what's going to happen with Taylor. Taylor went through a horrible injury, and we don't know what's going to happen with him. But all the indications are that Kyle, Collier, and Walker at this point are going to be pieces of the Jazz. And how good? What is their ceilings? I don't know. But those are the three guys that I think that clearly have a future with the franchise at this point, unless they're traded for more assets. It's not like they're just going to be that their contracts aren't going to be extended or something like that. So I think that from that standpoint, I think all those guys look good.
Yeah, we're going to have to cut a little bit short tonight, but I agree with that. Let me just state one thing that Locke said today. Is somebody asked him the question, he said, what's the one player, what are the players you think that are guaranteed going to be on the Jazz, like after the rebuild? And he made the comment, which I agree with the guy he selected, you're going to agree too. He says, like Walker Kessler. And then he made the comment that because he's proved that he's a rotation player in the NBA. And I hear that, and I'm like, what is this guy watching? He has not proven that he's a rotation player. He has proven that he's a high-quality starting player in the NBA. Has he proved he's a star? No, but a high-quality starting player. I think the two other guys that you just noted have proven that they are rotation players in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Big minutes rotation players? No, they haven't proven that. Isaiah hasn't proven that yet because he's got a serious weakness. Because of the defense of Flip, he hasn't proven that yet. But are they rotation players that get minutes in the NBA? They have proven that. So there's three guys now, I completely agree with you, of the young guys that have proven that they're NBA players that could make, either the Jazz or another team, and those are the three you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So we're gonna move off of the box score now about tonight's game. It was just another development night. The Jazz really struggled from three again. Shot 8 for 31. They had a lot of turnovers, and the assist-made field goal ratio that Al was talking about was really was not in the Jazz favor. So it was another development night and another loss. Though those are the two important things. Now let's move on to one other thing that I'm really pleased about. The most enjoyable college basketball that I've ever watched in my life, and I have no affiliation with this school, no affiliation with this university, but the college basketball that was played at the University of Utah during the Rick Majerus days was my favorite college basketball in my life. I mean, like I said, I don't have any affiliation with the University of Utah. I've never been a student there, never done anything there other than watch a bunch of basketball games and mostly NCAA tournament games. But Alex Jensen returning as the coach of the University of Utah after, I don't know what happened with the Jazz coaching situation. I assumed that he was pushed out. by the Jazz or somebody on the Jazz. But I am so happy that he's back, and I hope that he coaches the University of Utah in the same manner that Rick Majerus coached the University of Utah, and we get that level of college basketball back in the state of Utah, because I sincerely miss those days. And I like Alex Jensen a lot, and I hope that he has success. Regardless of that I have no affiliation with the University of Utah, I just want to see really good, high-level college basketball return to the state of Utah. Obviously, BYU's trending well. Utah needs to be trending well too. It's just good for the state from a basketball standpoint to have recognized name brands in the top 20 and playing, high level in March and contending for a Final Four. That's what I want. And Alex Jensen, tremendous basketball player at the U, and I think he learned all the right things from Majerus, and I hope that returns.
I was really pleased to hear that too. I don't know what happened with the Jazz. I'm sorry to see him go. I was glad that Kidd picked him up in Dallas and put him on the bench there for 3 years. He seems to be a really good guy. I don't know that much about him. Let me tell you, the only thing I fear when I saw that happen for Alex Jensen is that now in college basketball, you got to pay to get players in. I just hope that he has a budget, because if you don't have a budget, you're done now in college basketball. Not college basketball, college football and basketball. Because Rick Majerus could not have won in today's without a budget. I mean, you have to pay players to get them in now. So I hope that he negotiated to at least have a reasonable budget to bring in players, because otherwise it's not fair, right? Because if you can't pay players to come in, you're not going to get the good players. I mean, that's just now unfortunately how college basketball works.
Yeah. I completely, the amateur aspect of the game is lost, and it's really actually very sad what it has become. Yeah. And this whole transfer portal thing, and people are just transferring constantly. I mean, it's just, there's no continuity. And from that standpoint, college athletics will never be the same. And it's actually somewhat really sad. I mean, it just is. So anyway, anything else to add, or should we just end it for this?
I think we should end it. Let me tell two box scores that were really, unfortunately, they just didn't go our way. Charlotte almost beat Cleveland. They lost by 1 point. Bridges had 46 points. Man, that would have been a huge win for us if Charlotte would have won. And then Minnesota barely pulled it out in Miami and won by 2. Unfortunately, the clown, Bam Adebayo, I mean, one of the most overrated players in the game. I mean, you can't win without another guy other than Bam on your team, even how good Tyler Hero is playing. So unfortunately, we had 2 games go against us tonight. It was really unfortunate. Boy, it would have been huge for Charlotte to win that game. But it kind of is what it is. We lost, so that's the only thing that we control. We lost. We played it right. And still, it was a fun game.
Yeah, it was, and we got to continue to root for those those wins by those other teams. I mean, that's obviously a key, because the Jazz will probably win another couple games this season, and we would hope that they don't, but they probably will. Okay, we're going to call the night.
They have Washington at home. The Jazz have Washington going to Utah. That's going to be a hard one to lose, right? I mean, we're gonna win that game.
Although Washington still might be in a situation where it doesn't really matter if they win or lose that game, in all honesty, which does help the Jazz if they're in a situation where it doesn't really matter if they win that game. But anyway, all right, we're going to call it a night, and we appreciate everybody watching this edition of Jazz Smack Postgame. And please, if you are watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you are following us on X, just go ahead and follow us there. Anyway, we will talk to everybody later. Good night.